I'm Jamie Scott, 30 years old. I thought I knew my family until one dinner made me realize I was wrong. A few months ago, my brother called sounding warm and friendly. "Hey Jamie, come to Bookbinders in Richmond tonight. Just a quick dinner, it's been a while." It had been 3 months since I'd seen them, so I agreed, thinking maybe this time they'd actually act like a real family. Big mistake. Bookbinders is a fancy seafood and steakhouse. As soon as I walked in, I saw my whole family at the main table laughing and ordering expensive dishes. My brother waved at me, but instead of inviting me over, he pointed to a small shaky table in the corner right next to an overflowing trash can. "You can sit here, the other table's for the family." I froze. I'm still his sister, and I even pay half their household bills, but I didn't say a word. I sat down, watched them dine like royalty, and ordered a single glass of wine. When the waiter came back, I leaned in and said, "Put everything from that table on my brother's bill." Not long after, his shout echoed through the restaurant and every eye turned toward them. Before I tell you what happens next, let me know what time it is where you are and which city you're in, so I can see just how far my story has traveled. Sitting at that wobbly table by the trash can, the sting of my brother's words. The other tables for the family burned deeper than I expected. I'd been through this before, but this time it hit different. 3 months earlier, I got a call from my mom. "Jamie, we're throwing my birthday dinner at a nice place downtown. You should come." I showed up thinking it'd be a warm night with family. Instead, I was stuck footing a $1,200 bill for their crab legs and champagne, while they barely acknowledged me. I left that night feeling like their personal ATM, not their daughter. So when my brother invited me to Bookbinders, I felt uneasy from the start. Something told me this quick family dinner was another setup. Walking into that restaurant, I couldn't shake the feeling they were up to something. My brother had been texting me more than usual lately, always dropping hints about how tight things were for him at college. My mom kept mentioning family expenses piling up, and my dad, well, he never said much, but his silence always felt like a demand. I'd been pouring $2,500 a month into a shared family account for years, covering their phone bills, car payments, even my brother's tuition, $35,000 a year for his fancy private university. I thought it was my duty, keeping the family together. But sitting there smelling shrimp shells from that trash can, I realized they didn't see me as family. They saw me as a checkbook. At the main table, they were living it up. My brother was ordering Wagyu steaks for everyone, waving his hand like some big shot. My mom laughed, clinking glasses of red wine, probably a $500 bottle. My dad leaned back, tearing into a lobster tail, not once looking my way. They were so caught up in their little show they didn't notice me watching. Or maybe they just didn't care. The waiter passed by and I caught his eye. "Everything from that table," I said, pointing to my family, "put it on my brother's bill." He raised an eyebrow but nodded. I sipped my wine, feeling a spark of something I hadn't felt in years: control. I didn't stick around to see their faces when the bill came. I finished my drink, grabbed my purse, and slipped out the side door. The cool Richmond air hit me, and for a moment I felt free. My phone stayed quiet for about 30 minutes. Then it blew up. My brother's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. When I played it later, his voice was shaking with rage. "Jamie, what the hell? $7,500? Are you insane? You better explain this." I didn't call back. I just sat on my couch, replaying his words, that smug "the other tables for the family" echoing in my head. He thought he could push me aside and still cash my checks. Not this time. That night, I started thinking about all the times they'd used me. My mom's birthday wasn't the first. There was the time my dad borrowed $500 for a new TV, never paid back. Or when my brother needed $1,000 for school supplies that somehow turned into a spring break trip to Miami. I'd let it slide, told myself it was what family does. But family doesn't seat you by the trash can. Family doesn't treat you like you're invisible unless they need something. The morning after I walked out of Bookbinders, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing with my brother's furious voicemails. I ignored everyone, letting them pile up like the trash by that table he'd stuck me at. I knew the storm was coming, and I wasn't wrong. By noon, there was a sharp knock on my apartment door in Richmond. I opened it, and there were my mom and dad, faces hard with anger. My mom clutched a crumpled receipt, her knuckles white, while my dad stood behind her, arms crossed, jaw clenched, like he was ready to tear into me. They didn't wait for me to invite them in. They pushed past, marched to my kitchen table, and my mom slapped the receipt down. "Explain this, Jamie," she said, her voice sharp as a knife. $7,500. What kind of game are you playing?" I leaned against the counter, forcing myself to stay calm. My heart was pounding, but I wasn't going to let them see it. "I paid for my wine," I said, keeping my voice steady. "That's it. You'll have to ask your son about the rest." My mom's eyes widened like she couldn't believe I'd dare push back. She opened her mouth, but my dad cut in, stepping closer, his voice low and biting. "You're being selfish, Jamie. You know how tough things have been for us. You can't just pull a stunt like this and walk away." Selfish. The word hit me like a slap. I'd been pouring $2,500 a month into their shared account for years. Car payments, phone bills, my brother's $35,000 tuition for his fancy college. I'd given up vacations, new clothes, my own savings, all to keep them afloat. And I was selfish. My mom sat down at the table, her tone shifting to something softer, but it felt rehearsed, like she'd practiced it in the car. "Jamie, I'm sorry if you felt left out at the dinner," she said, her eyes flicking to the receipt. "We didn't mean it. Your family, you know that. Let's just fix this. Okay, pay the bill and we'll make it right." Her words were sweet, but her face told a different story, cold, calculating, like she was reading a script. I stared at her, then at my dad, who wouldn't even look at me. He just stood there, arms still crossed, staring at the floor. That's when it hit me clear as day. They didn't come to apologize. They came to make sure I'd keep opening my wallet. To them, I wasn't their daughter. I was their bank. I shook my head, my voice firm. "I'm not paying it. Your son ordered the Wagyu steaks, the wine, the lobster. He can figure it out." My dad's face turned red, and he stepped closer, his voice rising. "You think you're better than us now? You think you can just cut us off like we're nothing?" He slammed his hand on the table, the receipt fluttering to the floor. I didn't flinch. I'd spent years shrinking under their anger, their guilt trips, their demands. But that night at Bookbinders, sitting by that trash can, had flipped a switch. I wasn't their doormat anymore. "You sat there laughing, drinking your $500 wine," I said, looking at my mom. "You didn't even glance at me. You stuck me by the trash can and called it a family dinner. I'm done." My mom's face tightened, but she tried again, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Jamie, we're a family. We need to stick together. You've always helped us out. Don't stop now. We'll do better, I promise." She reached for my hand across the table, but I pulled back. Her promises were empty, and I was tired of believing them. I thought about the shared account, how I'd been depositing money every month, thinking it was for necessities, groceries, utilities, things to keep them going. But then I remembered the charges I'd seen over the years. Spa days for my mom, $300 a pop. New golf clubs for my dad, $500. My brother's school supplies that turned into a $1,000 trip to Miami. $2,500 a month straight from my savings, and they still treated me like I didn't belong. I looked at my mom, my voice steady but cold. "You didn't even look at me at that dinner. You sat there toasting to family while I was stuck smelling shrimp shells. Family doesn't do that." My dad scoffed, rolling his eyes. "You're blowing this out of proportion, Jamie. It was just a table." Just a table. I wanted to scream. It wasn't just a table. It was years of being used, years of giving everything, my money, my time, my trust, and getting nothing but demands in return. I took a deep breath and said, "I'm done being your ATM. You want to talk family? Start acting like one." My mom's face fell, but not because she was hurt. She was scheming, her eyes darting to my dad like they were planning their next move. My dad just glared, his voice low. "You'll regret this, Jamie. You don't get to walk away from us." They turned and left without another word, the receipt still on the floor. I picked it up, staring at the numbers, $7,500. I didn't feel guilty. For the first time, I felt free. I'd been carrying their weight for so long, telling myself it was love, duty, family. But it wasn't. It was control. They didn't want me at their table unless I was paying for it. I sat on my couch, the apartment quiet except for the hum of the fridge. My phone buzzed again, another text from my brother, probably more yelling. I didn't open it. I knew what was coming next. They'd try to guilt me, manipulate me, maybe even lash out. The day after my mom and dad stormed out of my apartment, I was on edge, waiting for their next move. That afternoon, I sat down to work on my laptop, a cheap but reliable machine I used for my marketing job. I opened it, clicked to log in, and the screen froze. A message flashed, "No operating system found." My stomach sank. I rebooted, tried again. Same error. All my files, client presentations, spreadsheets, photos from my last trip with friends, gone. My hands shook as I opened the security camera app on my phone. I'd installed a small camera in my living room after a break-in scare last year, just to be safe. I pulled up the footage from the night before, and my blood ran cold. There was my dad sneaking into my apartment after our fight, hunched over my laptop, typing furiously. He'd used his spare key and wiped it clean. I sat there staring at the screen, my heart pounding. This wasn't just anger. This was sabotage. My dad didn't just want to guilt me into paying their bills, he wanted to hurt me, to punish me for standing up to them. I grabbed my phone and called the Richmond police, my voice steady despite the rage burning inside. "Someone tampered with my laptop," I told the officer. "I have video proof. It's my dad. He deleted everything." The officer asked for details: when, how, what was lost. I explained: work files, personal data, months of effort. I sent the footage clear as day, showing my dad's face lit up by the laptop screen. "We'll need you to come to the station to file a report," the officer said. I didn't hesitate. I wasn't letting this slide. At the police station, I laid it all out: the dinner at Bookbinders, the $7,500 bill I'd stuck my brother with, the fight with my parents yesterday, and now this. The officer watched the footage, his face serious. "This is property damage," he said. "You can press charges, or we can mediate for compensation." I didn't want a drawn-out legal fight, too much stress, too much time. "I just want him to pay for the damage," I said. $500 to recover the data and fix the laptop. The officer nodded, said they'd contact my dad. A few hours later, he called back. "Your father's agreed to pay the $500. He'll bring it to the station tomorrow." I thanked him, but my chest was still tight. This wasn't about the money. It was about what they were willing to do to keep me in line. The next morning, I woke up to a knock. I opened the door, but no one was there, just an envelope slid under it. Inside was a check for $500 and a note in my dad's handwriting: "Take it and drop this nonsense." No apology, no explanation, just his usual arrogance. I held the check, my hand steady now. He thought this would shut me up, make me fall back into my role as their cash machine. But it only made things clearer. They weren't just using me. They were willing to sabotage my life to keep control. I deposited the check at the bank, but the tension didn't fade. I knew this was just the beginning. They'd try something else, something worse. That night, I poured a glass of wine and opened the shared family account on my phone. I'd been avoiding it, not wanting to face how much I'd been bleeding for them, but I needed answers. I scrolled through the transactions and my jaw tightened with every line. Spa visits for my mom, $300 each, sometimes twice a month. A new set of golf clubs for my dad, $500. Restaurant charges, bar tabs, a weekend getaway to Virginia Beach. None of it for necessities like they always claimed. $2,500 a month straight from my savings, and they were living it up while I worked overtime to cover it. I thought about my brother's tuition, $35,000 a year, and how he'd never once thanked me, just smirked and stuck me by the trash can at Bookbinders. I closed the app. My mind racing. I'd always told myself I was helping them, keeping the family together. But this wasn't help. It was exploitation. They didn't care about me. They cared about what I could give them. I replayed the footage of my dad wiping my laptop. His face cold and deliberate. If he could sneak into my home and destroy my work, what else would they do? My phone buzzed a text from my mom. Jamie, we need to talk. Your dad's upset, but we can work this out. Come to our anniversary party next week. Let's be a family again. I stared at the message, my stomach twisting. A party. After he sabotaged my laptop. It was another trap. Another way to pull me back in. A week after my dad slid that $500 check under my door, I was still reeling from his sabotage. Even so, I decided to go, not to make peace, but to end this on my terms. I spent the week drafting a letter, every word sharp and true, ready to lay bare their lies. When the day came, I drove to their house in the suburbs of Richmond, my heart pounding but my resolve ironclad. The house was decked out for their anniversary, string lights, a catered spread, relatives milling around with drinks in hand. My mom greeted me at the door, all smiles, as if she hadn't called me selfish a week ago. "Jamie, you came?" she said, pulling me into a hug that felt more like a performance. My dad stood nearby, nodding stiffly, his eyes avoiding mine. My brother was there too, leaning against the kitchen counter, smirking like nothing had happened. The air was thick with fake warmth, and I could feel the eyes of aunts, uncles, and cousins watching, waiting for me to play the good daughter. I didn't smile back. I wasn't here for their show. Halfway through the evening, my mom clinked her glass to get everyone's attention. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate our anniversary," she said, her voice sugary. "And thank you, Jamie, for always supporting us. We're so grateful." The room turned to me, clapping lightly, but her words twisted in my gut. Grateful for what? My money? I caught my brother's eye, and he raised his glass, his smirk widening. Then my dad stepped forward, his tone casual but pointed. "Jamie, we've got the catering bill covered, but it's $3,000. You'll take care of it, right? For the family." The room went quiet, relatives shifting uncomfortably, but no one spoke up. They all knew the drill. I was the one who paid. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "No," I said loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm not paying." My mom's smile froze and my dad's face darkened. My brother laughed like it was a joke, but I didn't waver. "You invited me here to be a family, but all you want is my money. I'm done." Whispers rippled through the room, cousins exchanging glances, but I kept going. "You stuck me by a trash can at Bookbinders, called me selfish when I wouldn't pay your $7,000 bill, and then you—" I pointed at my dad, "wiped my laptop to punish me. I'm not your bank anymore." My mom stepped forward, her voice low and urgent. "Jamie, this isn't the place. Let's talk privately." But I wasn't backing down. I pulled the letter from my purse and set it on the table, my hands steady. "This is for you," I said, looking at my mom, my dad, my brother. "It lists every cent you've spent from my account. Spa days, golf clubs, beach trips, $2,500 a month while I worked overtime to cover it. You're not a family, you're a business, and I'm out." The room was dead silent, relatives staring at the letter like it was a bomb. My dad's face turned red and my brother shouted, "You're embarrassing us." I didn't flinch. "No," I said. "You embarrassed yourselves." I turned and walked out, the sound of my heels echoing on the hardwood. My mom called after me. "Jamie, wait," but I didn't stop. I got in my car, the letter still burning in my mind. I'd listed everything: $300 spa visits, $500 golf clubs, a $1,000 getaway to Virginia Beach, all charged to the shared account I'd funded for years. I thought about my brother's tuition, $35,000 a year, and how he'd smirked at me across that table. I thought about my dad sneaking into my apartment, wiping my laptop like it was nothing. I thought about my mom's fake apologies, her crocodile tears. They didn't deserve my money, my time, or my guilt. I drove back to Richmond, the weight of their expectations lifting with every mile. 1 week after I left my parents' anniversary party, my letter exposing their lies still burning in my mind, I was ready to cut the final ties. Driving away from their house, I'd felt the first taste of freedom, but I knew they'd come after me. Sitting in my Richmond apartment, I opened my banking app and stared at the shared family account I'd been funding for years. It was the last chain binding me to their greed. My heart pounded as I called my bank and froze the account, locking them out for good. Then I contacted my brother's university and canceled the $35,000 tuition payment I'd been covering each year. It felt like ripping off a bandage, painful but necessary. I braced myself for the storm I knew would follow. The backlash came fast. That evening, my phone buzzed with a text from my brother. "You're unbelievable. Cutting my tuition. You're gonna ruin my life over one dinner. You're pathetic." His words stung, but they didn't surprise me. He'd laughed in my face at that restaurant, expecting me to pay for his extravagance, and now he was angry I'd stopped. I didn't respond. Then my mom started calling, her voicemails flooding in, 6 in 2 hours, each one more desperate than the last. "Jamie, how could you do this to us? We're your family. Pick up and fix this." Her voice cracked, but I knew it was an act, just like her tears at the party. I let them pile up, each one fueling my resolve. By the third day, my dad called, his tone cold and sharp. "You think you can cut us off? I'll make things difficult for you, Jamie. Don't test me." I saved the voicemail. My hands steady, but my pulse racing. He'd already sabotaged my laptop. What else would he do? Then the rumors started. My cousin Holly texted me her message, hesitant but urgent. "Hey Jamie, I don't know what's going on, but your mom's telling everyone you're out of control. They're saying you're unstable, that you've abandoned your family over nothing." I stared at her words, my jaw tight. Unstable. They'd used me for years, destroyed my work when I pushed back, and now they were spinning lies to save their image. Holly added, "They're telling aunts, uncles, even neighbors. I don't believe them, but people are talking." I thanked her, my fingers trembling as I typed. It wasn't just a fight anymore. They were trying to ruin my reputation, to paint me as the villain so they could play the victims. It was a desperate move, but it only made me angrier. I wasn't going to let them control the narrative. I opened my laptop, grateful it was restored after my dad's sabotage, and pulled up the bank statements I'd saved. The evidence was clear: the luxuries I'd listed in my letter at the party, funded by my overtime hours while they lived it up. I compiled screenshots of the transactions, each one a reminder of their betrayal. I drafted an email addressing it to every relative who'd been at the anniversary party, aunts, uncles, cousins, including Holly. The subject line was simple: the truth they don't want you to see. In the email, I laid out the facts, cold and clear. For years, I funded a shared account believing I was helping my family. Instead, they used it for luxuries while treating me like I didn't matter. They expected me to pay for their dinners, sabotaged my laptop when I refused, and now they're spreading lies that I'm out of control. The attached bank statements show the truth, every charge they made on my dime. Judge for yourselves. I attached the screenshots and hit send, my heart steady but my stomach in knots. This wasn't just about clearing my name, it was about exposing their lies to everyone they'd tried to manipulate. I wasn't their scapegoat anymore. The next day, my phone was quiet. No calls, no texts, no angry voicemails. I wondered if the email had stunned them into silence or if they were plotting their next move. Holly texted again, her words heavy. I saw the email, Jamie. I'm so sorry. I had no idea they were doing this to you. I'm on your side. I thanked her, but I didn't expect much from the others. They'd stood by at the party, clapping for my mom's fake gratitude while I was asked to foot another bill. They were too tied to my parents to speak up. But I didn't need their validation. I'd spent years chasing their approval, only to realize they didn't see me as family. They saw me as a resource to exploit. Sitting on my couch, I looked around my apartment, the one I'd paid for, while they took everything I gave. I thought about my brother's venomous texts, my mom's manipulative voicemails, my dad's chilling threats. They'd crossed every line, taken my money, my trust, and still demanded more. Cutting their access wasn't just about the account or my brother's tuition, it was about reclaiming my life. The email was my final stand, my way of saying I was done being their pawn. They could spread their rumors, make their threats, but I was free. I started thinking about what came next. Richmond felt heavy now, every street tied to their betrayal. I'd been looking at job listings in Augusta, a chance to start fresh, far from their reach. The idea of a new life, one where I wasn't defined by their demands, felt like a lifeline. I wasn't just closing an account. I was closing a chapter, and I was ready to walk away for good. 2 weeks after I sent that email exposing my family's lies, I packed the last of my things and left Richmond behind. I'd landed a marketing job in Augusta, Maine, a quiet city far from the weight of my family's betrayal. The move wasn't just about distance, it was about cutting them out of my life for good. I changed my phone number, deleted my old email, and removed every link to the shared accounts they'd drained for years. My apartment, once a reminder of their greed, was now empty, my belongings packed into a small moving truck. As I drove north, the road stretching out before me, I felt lighter than I had in years. I was done being their bank, their scapegoat, their doormat. A month later, settled into a small rental in Augusta, I got a text from Holly. She'd been the only one to reach out after my email, the only one who didn't buy my family's story about me being out of control. Her message was short but heavy. "Hey, Jamie, things have changed here. Your dad's taken a second job at a hardware store working late shifts. Your brother's working part-time at a coffee shop to cover his tuition. Your mom stopped her spa trips. They're struggling, but they haven't said sorry. I think they're too proud." I read her words, waiting for guilt to hit, but it didn't. They'd had years to treat me with respect, to see me as more than a wallet. Instead, they'd stuck me by a trash can, sabotaged my laptop, spread lies about me. Now they were facing the consequences, living without my money, forced to fend for themselves. But their pride, their refusal to own up, told me they hadn't changed. They were still the same people who'd used me, and I wasn't going back. Holly added, "Some relatives stopped talking to them after your email. They saw the bank statements and it opened their eyes." I nodded to myself, a small satisfaction settling in. The aunts and uncles who'd clapped for my mom's fake gratitude at the anniversary party were now keeping their distance. My family's lies had unraveled, their image cracked, but they hadn't reached out to apologize. No calls, no texts, no letters, just silence. My brother, who'd called me pathetic for cutting his tuition, was now pouring coffee to pay for school. My dad, who'd threatened to make things difficult, was working nights to cover bills. My mom, who'd played the victim with her crocodile tears, was living without her luxuries. They'd built their lives on my money, and now that it was gone, they were scrambling. But their silence spoke louder than any apology could. They didn't regret using me. They regretted losing me. Sitting in my new apartment, sunlight streaming through the window, I thought about how far I'd come. For years, I'd let guilt trap me, believing I owed them because they were family. I'd worked overtime, skipped vacations, poured everything into their demands, only to be disrespected at every turn. That dinner at the restaurant where they stuck me by the trash can was the first crack. Their lies, their sabotage, their refusal to see me as anything but a resource. It all led me here to a life I was building for myself. Augusta wasn't just a new city. It was a new start, a place where I could breathe without their weight on my shoulders. If I could go back, I'd tell myself one thing: don't let family guilt trap you. Set boundaries, and when respect is gone, walk away. Family isn't about blood, it's about who treats you like you matter. I learned that the hard way, but I'm stronger for it. I'm not the girl who sat by the trash can anymore. I'm not the girl who paid for their lies. I'm free, and I'm never going back. To everyone watching, thank you for sticking with my story. It's been a wild ride, but sharing it has helped me heal. If this hit home for you, drop a comment. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family? How did you do it? Hit that subscribe button for more stories like this, and let's keep the conversation going. You're not alone, and you deserve to be respected. Thanks for being here.